You press your palms against the cold, smooth surface of your desk, eyes closed, feeling the weight of every unfulfilled promise keystoning your chest. What if today was the day you stopped wishing for change and started forging it? You lean forward, spine straightening as determination creeps into your bones. In this moment, you understand that true strength doesn't erupt fully form it's built brick by brick through the small choices you repeat daily. It begins with a single commitment. Show up for yourself. Maybe yesterday you hit the snooze button instead of greeting dawn with purpose. Maybe you let distractions lure you from that page of your book or that 20-minute run you promised yourself. But today, you draw a line. You set a micro goal, read 10 pages, lace up your sneakers, delete a distracting append you follow through. That choice, seemingly insignificant, echoes into your future selves. Day by day, those echoes converge into a chorus of unstoppable momentum. Consider Winston Churchill in 1940, standing before a nation teetering on collapse. His voice, rough from exhaustion and heated by adversity, carried no illusions of swift victory. Yet he committed, hour by hour, to speaking hope into being, rallying a battered people to action. He knew that forging strength wasn't about a single speech, it was about sustaining belief, one phrase at a time, until that belief crystallized into resolve. You possess that same capacity. Your struggles may not play out on the world stage, but your daily battlegrounds, your to-do list, your self-doubt, your comfort zone are no less consequential. Every morning when you wake, you inherit an empty vessel of hours. Will you fill it with habits that strengthen you or settle for what's comfortable? You choose the former. You draft a simple action plan, a brief journal entry to clarify your intentions, a short but intense workout to remind your body of its power, and a moment of quiet reflection to anchor your mind. Each task may take barely 10 minutes, but 10 minutes repeated becomes an hour a week, 4 hours a month, 52 hours a year. Imagine what you could build with 52 hours of consistent, focused effort. You encounter frictional routines, tug at your sleeve. The voice of complacency whispers in your ear, and setbacks sting your pride. But you greet adversity with curiosity. Instead of running from discomfort, you lean into it. That racing heartbeat when you tackle a heavier weight, the ache in your fingertips as you learn a new skill, the knot in your stomach when you send that email you've been putting off. Each pulse of resistance is evidence of growth. You track progress in small wins, an extra push-up, a completed chapter, a call you made despite nerves. Those wins map your journey from who you were to who you're becoming. Progress isn't linear. You may miss a workout, procrastinate on writing, revert to old patterns. Yet you refuse to let perfectionism rob you of persistence. When you falter, you ask, what can I adjust tomorrow? Instead of spiraling into self-criticism, you practice self-compassion paired with accountability. You remind yourself that forging your strongest self isn't a destination, it's a daily forging process. Each dawn, you pick up the hammer again. Before sleep, you review the day's victories, however small, and plan tomorrow's first action. This closing ritual cements your identity as someone who follows through. Over weeks, you notice subtle shifts. Mornings feel less heavy. Confidence seeps into new challenges. Setbacks lose their sting. You stand stronger. This is your Forge Every commitment. Every micro victory is a glowing ember. Stoke it with consistency and intention, and it becomes an unbreakable core of strength. Embrace this cadence. Commit daily, track small wins, and iterate with compassion. That is how you build the strongest version of yourself. Next, you will learn to shield that forged strength from the world's noise. You step into a busy street, the hum of traffic merging with snatches of conversation from passers-by, impersonal advertisements blaring from storefront speakers. In this sea of stimuli, you feel your focus fraying at the edges, your attention pulled in 1,000 directions. Yet you know that true progress demands a sanctuary of calm. You decide, here and now, to become the guardian of your own mind. You refuse to let external noise dictate your inner state. You pause at a crosswalk and close your eyes briefly, inhaling deeply. The roar of engines transforms into a distant rumble. The chatter around you fades into white noise. You recall Marcus Aurelius secluding himself in a quiet chamber, pen in hand, where the world's demands could not breach the walls of his mind. Like him, you claim a mental fortress, constructed not of stone but of intention and habit. You begin by auditing the sources of distraction in your daily life. Notifications light up your phone screen at random intervals, social media pings, email banners, news alerts clamoring for your gaze. You realize each alert is a siren song, dragging you away from purposeful action. So you disable non-essential notifications, silencing the chime of every app except the ones that serve your priorities. You place your phone on airplane mode during deep work sessions, treating it as a tool rather than a tyrant. In the morning, you carve out a ritual. 15 minutes of seated meditation, eyes closed, spine straight, breath as your anchor. When thoughts intrude reminders of an unfinished task or worries about an uncertain future, you acknowledge them and let them drift away like clouds. You cultivate the muscle of attention, returning again and again to the steady cadence of inhalation and exhalation. Over time, each session sharpens your capacity to remain present, even when chaos encroaches. You also redesign your physical environment to support focus. Your workspace becomes deliberately sparse. A clean desk, a single notebook, and the essential tools you need. You remove stacks of papers, stray coffee cups, and objects that serve only to fragment your attention. You adopt a one-in, one-out rule. Bringing in a new item prompts you to remove something else. This practice ensures your surroundings mirror the clarity you seek within. Consider J.K. Rowling, laboring in a crowded cafe as the world around her buzzed with chatter and clatter. She learned to tune out the din, channeling her mind into the unfolding saga of a young wizard. You emulate her practice, setting up your own focus bubble. Headphones tuned to ambient instrumental tracks, a timer ticking down intervals of concentrated work followed by brief, deliberate breaks. During breaks, you stand, stretch, and glance out the window, never reaching for your phone, but allowing your mind a restful pause. Beyond physical changes, you master your inner dialogue. Earlier, intrusive thoughts, grim forecasts of failure, or echoes of past mistakes would hijack your concentration. Now, you intercept them with gentle reframing. That thought is a suggestion, not a decree. You speak to yourself with curiosity instead of judgment, converting mental clutter into data points that inform, but do not incapacitate, your progress. You learn a powerful technique from modern research, the Pomodoro method. You work for 25 minutes uninterrupted, then reward yourself with a 5-minute respite. This rhythm keeps you engaged, prevents mental fatigue, and makes focus manageable. Before you know it, cycles of deep work stack into hours of productivity, each block reinforcing your ability to resist distraction. You also adopt batching, grouping similar tasks together to minimize context switching. You designate specific times for email, calls, and creative ideation. When you arrive at your email batch, you respond efficiently, then return the app to obscurity. This creates discrete zones for different modes of thinking, reducing the mental tax of toggling between unrelated tasks. Of course, shielding your mind doesn't mean shutting out the world entirely. You remain attuned to signals that matter, an urgent message from a colleague, the heartbeat of a family emergency. You set up filters, visual cues, or priority flags that allow essential communications through while rerouting lesser interruptions to scheduled review times. You architect an information funnel that balances responsiveness with preservation of focus. Reflect on Elon Musk tweeting in the early morning darkness, undeterred by criticism, narrowing his gaze to the horizon of his vision. He channels the clamor of doubters into determination rather than distraction. In your own journey, you summon that same resolve. When negative comments surface, you acknowledge their existence but refuse to let them derail your pursuit. You ask yourself, does this serve my objective? If not, you return to your work, letting the noise recede. You strengthen focus muscles through deliberate practice, reading dense material without skimming, writing for set durations without pausing, performing a single exercise rep until form falters before moving on. Each exercise becomes an invitation to inhabit the present moment. You notice subtle cues, warmth of sunlight on your skin, the gentle hum of birds outside. the faint rustle of pages turning. These details anchor you, transforming your workspace into a mindful arena. You also engage in periodic digital detox experiments. Once a week, you commit to a full day without social media, intentionally stepping away from the digital swirl. You journal about your experience, sharper clarity, deeper engagement with creative tasks, and a profound sense of psychological relief. These detox days reinforce your conviction that you control technology rather than the reverse. When stress mounts, you incorporate micro-mindfulness, a brief pause at your desk to close your eyes and scan your body for tension, releasing it with an exhale, a conscious stretch of your shoulders and neck. A sip of water taken with full awareness of its temperature and texture. These small interludes reset your nervous system, returning you to a baseline of composure. By mastering these strategies, you transform distraction from an inevitable adversary into a manageable variable. You no longer slip into reactive habits instead. You enter each work session with intention, commanding your attention rather than surrendering it. The world remains loud, but you occupy a zone of tranquility within. As your capacity for focused work grows, you notice collateral benefits. Creativity blossoms when the mind is uncluttered. Your mood stabilizes as stress from constant interruption dissipates, and your ability to learn complex skills deepens. This fortified mental state becomes the springboard for persistent action, fueling the next stage of your journey. You have now learned to shield the strength you forged from the chaos of external noise. Up next, you will harness that sanctuary of calm to transform doubt into fuel, pressing forward even when the world doubts your vision. You step onto an empty stage, lights glaring down, and for a moment the silence feels heavier than any roar of applause. You feel the echo of doubt reverberating in your bones, doubt cast by others who couldn't envision your path, doubt you once harbored yourself. Yet you stand firm, aware that real triumph often germinates in solitude, nourished by a conviction others cannot comprehend. Today, you choose to transform that doubt into the very fuel propelling you forward. You recall the story of Marie Curie, laboring alone in a makeshift laboratory, dismissed by many in her male-dominated field. No one stood behind her when she toiled over radium's dangerous glow. Yet she persevered, driven by an unshakable belief that her work would illuminate unforeseen truths about matter itself. Each failed experiment, each skeptical eyebrow, each rumor of her failures became stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. You, too, inhabit that same crucible. The whispers that you're wasting time, the raised eyebrows at your unconventional methods, these are signposts pointing you toward a breakthrough. Your world may not involve radioactive isotopes, but the principle remains: if you wait for universal approval, you will wait forever. Approval is a fickle currency controlled by circumstances outside your arena. So you pivot inward. You craft a mantra. My vision is valid, and repeat it before each endeavor. You imprint it on sticky notes plastered around your workspace, on the edge of your monitor, inside your journal, even on the bathroom mirror. This simple ritual recalibrates your internal gauge of worthiness. You remind yourself that belief is a choice, and you choose to believe first. You chart a course toward your goal, dividing it into manageable milestones. Let's say your mission is to write a book in 12 months. Others scoff at the timeline, labeling it unrealistic. Instead of letting their mockery derail you, you break it down. 1 chapter per month, 2 outlines per week, 500 words per day. When someone questions your pace, you simply smile inwardly, because you know that consistent motion, no matter how small, destroys inertia. You show up at your laptop before dawn, your fingers stirring words into existence before the world wakes. Those words accumulate faster than the negativity trying to smother them. You also seek out unlikely allies, fellow outsiders who share your resilience. You attend small meetups, virtual forums, and local workshops where your unconventional passion isn't a liability but a shared secret. There, you exchange war stories of rejection letters and failed auditions, and you discover that the flame inside you burns brighter when fed by a community that thrives on defying the odds. Together, you celebrate every minor victoria, positive comment, a small sale, a breakthrough paragraph hand. Those celebrations harden your resolve. In moments when isolation threatens to overwhelm, you anchor yourself in the practice of fact-checking your fear. When your inner critic snarls, "They were right, you're not good enough," you pause and list 3 objective facts. You have dedicated 2 years to honing this craft. You've received praise from a mentor you respect. And you have concrete data blog metrics, beta reader feedback that affirms your progress. These facts don't erase emotion, but they recalibrate the conversation from panic to perspective. You learn to argue back against fear with evidence. Consider the example of Tori Murden McClure, who rowed alone across the Atlantic Ocean. Thousands told her it was impossible, that no one could endure weeks of isolation, storms, and relentless waves. Each night, as her small boat pitched and rolled, she scribbled in her log, "I am capable." She visualized the harbor waiting at journey's end, and she focused on the next hour rather than the entire voyage. By holding fast to her inner conviction, she arrived triumphant, rewriting the boundaries of what a solo adventurer could achieve. You draw inspiration from her example, internalizing that single thought. When you own your ability, isolation morphs into liberation. Yet you're human, and there are days when your mantra falters. You wake to an inbox full of rejections, or a social media post is met with silence. You feel the old sting of inadequacy creeping back. In those moments, you employ your break glass ritual. You reach for a carefully curated playlist of empowering speeches, Nelson Mandela's words on freedom, Malala Yousafzai's testimony of courage, or James Baldwin's call to moral integrity. You listen, tears stinging your eyes, and you remember that great change has always begun with an individual daring to stand when no one else did. You let their voices merge with your own, and you reclaim the narrative. Your next tactic is to transform doubt into data. Instead of internalizing negative comments as verdicts, you categorize them: constructive, irrelevant, or toxic. For each bit of feedback, you decide whether to incorporate it or discard it. If someone offers a thoughtful critique, your pacing drags in the middle chapters. You note it in your revision plan. If someone merely attacks, "This idea is stupid," you route it to your mental recycle bin. This methodical approach turns an emotional roller coaster into an organized project, freeing your mind from the chaos of reaction. You also sow seeds of small victories into your daily routine to drown out the noise of rejection. You make a habit of sending a weekly update to a mentor or friend who believes in you, sharing your wins and your next steps. This external accountability produces an elegant friction. It compels you to deliver on promises, even when the world outside remains skeptical. Each update becomes a micro-ceremony of progress, a testament to your commitment that others witness, reminding you that your vision resonates when you honor it with action. Imagine a seedling breaking through asphalt. It doesn't debate the pavement's hardness. It simply persists, finding the tiniest crack, pushing upward until it bursts resistance. You are that seedling. Doubters and dismissal form the asphalt around you, but your relentless growth will eventually shatter the old beliefs that confine you. As your confidence solidifies, you begin to extend belief outward. You mentor someone who faces similar skepticism, offering guidance drawn from your journey. When they hesitate, you share your mantra and your fact-checking strategy. Teaching deepens your conviction. By helping another believe, you reinforce your own certainty. It becomes a virtuous cycle. Your strength inspires theirs, and theirs fortifies your resolve. Throughout this process, you remember to celebrate each milestone with mindful rituals. Lighting a candle when you finish a chapter, taking a solitary walk in nature when you reach a key sales goal, or enjoying a quiet coffee in a favorite cafe when you secure your first paid commission. These moments of recognition honor your journey, signaling to your subconscious that progress matters even when applause is absent. By choosing to fight when no one believes, you transform isolation into empowerment. You are the author of your belief, the guardian of your vision, and the alchemist turning doubt into determination. Keep this lesson close. Your conviction outlasts the skeptics. Next, you will solidify your dedication by showing up for yourself every day, regardless of how you feel. You wake before sunrise, the sky a pale wash of blue-gray, and your first thought is whether you truly want to get up. The warmth of your bed tempts you to linger. to delay the moment of reckoning with your goals. But today, you honor a higher promise, the promise you made to yourself. You swing your legs over the edge, feet touching the cool floor, and in that simple act, you choose presence over procrastination. You show up for yourself no matter your mood, no matter the noise, because this is how you build unbreakable commitment. Showing up isn't glamorous. It doesn't always thrill you or feel life-changing in the moment. It's tough love, a quiet yet firm handshake you give your own potential. Imagine Ludwig van Beethoven composing his Ninth Symphony while nearly deaf. Each morning, he sat at the piano, coaxing melodies from keys he could no longer hear. The physical pain in his ear did not excuse him. It did not allow him to skip practice. Instead, he arrived at the keyboard with unwavering resolve, letting his inner ear guide the music. You draw inspiration from him. Regardless of how disconnected you feel from your goals, you still arrive and engage. Your ritual begins with a simple checklist, nothing elaborate. You place it by your bedside. 1. Hydrate. 2. Move. 3. Plan. You do not skip the first item, even if exhaustion tugs at you. You pour water into a glass and drink it slowly, feeling hydration ripple through your body. Next, you perform 3 minutes of movemana, set of stretches, sun salutations, or gentle yoga. You don't concern yourself with intensity. Your only criterion is consistency. By the time your muscles wake, you've already honored your promise to yourself. After movement, you sit with a pen and your journal for 5 minutes. You capture one sentence. Today, I will show up by underscore, 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 underscore. You fill the blank, writing 500 words, revising the proposal, practicing coding. This statement transforms your vague intentions into a concrete commitment. You fold the paper and tuck it into your pocket, a talisman reminding you of your focus throughout the day. Throughout the morning, you confront resistance. In the shower, you recall the warmth you could return to. At breakfast, you feel the urge to just relax, but in each moment, you cue a mental pause. You whisper to yourself, I showed up for my promise. Now I'll honor it. You channel the example of Malala Yousafzai, who, despite threats to her life, continued to attend school. She could have chosen safety over education, yet she arrived every day, facing adversity to pursue her goal. Her courage wasn't a grand spectacle. It was the sum of countless mornings she decided to show up. By mid-morning, you encounter your first major task. Perhaps it's drafting a difficult email or tackling a dense report. The weight of potential failure presses on you. You could justify a postponement waiting for more energy, more clarity, or a more convenient time. But showing up means starting now. You set a timer for 30 minutes of focused work. You open the document, breathe, and begin typing. The first word emerges slowly, like a hesitant footprint in fresh snow. You keep going. Each sentence builds momentum, erasing the self-doubt that whispered for delay. When the timer rings, you pause and acknowledge your progress, however modest. You check the list in your pocket, seeing the promise you made. You haven't completed the entire task, but you have shown up. You cross off writing 500 words with satisfaction, knowing that crossing off that small goal has set the tone for the rest of your day. As noon approaches, you may feel fatigue or the lure of social media. You resist by honoring your midday checkpoint. You step outside for a short stroll. Even 5 minutes under the sky resets your energy. You remind yourself that showing up includes caring for your well-being, not just grinding endlessly. When you return, you're more apt to tackle the afternoon tasks you pledged to yourself. In the afternoon, you follow through on a creative session, sketching ideas, outlining a new project, or practicing a language. Showing up doesn't guarantee perfection. It guarantees participation. You produce flawed drafts, awkward sketches, and tentative phrases, but you complete them. These imperfect artifacts become the raw material for improvement, proof that you were present and engaged. Consider the marathon runner Kathrine Switzer, who, in 1967, entered the Boston Marathon when women were unofficially barred. During the race, officials attempted to remove her from the course. Despite the aggression and potential danger, she pressed on, running each mile until she crossed the finish line. Her act of showing up in a male-dominated field forced a reevaluation of the rules themselves. You mirror her tenacity. Even when structural obstacles or internal voices discourage you, your presence challenges the status quo. By early evening, you review your day. You retrieve the journal slip and reflect on what you showed up for and where you fell short. If you missed a commitment, you don't berate yourself. You note a lesson. Tomorrow, I'll set a shorter timer, or I'll adjust my plan for better energy flow. This feedback loop keeps the practice sustainable. You don't demand perfection. You demand presence. Your evening ritual mirrors the morning's blueprint. You spend a moment of gratitude on your balcony or by a window, acknowledging the progress you made, however incremental. You journal one insight. Perhaps you realize that writing in shorter bursts works better, or that movement in the afternoon sharpens your return to work. You record one intention for tomorrow, showing up to practice again. Before sleep, you place a fresh journal slip by your bed and write tomorrow's promise. It could be as simple as, I will read 3 pages, or I will practice speaking for 10 minutes. As you drift off, the slip sits like a pact between your conscious and subconscious minds, ensuring that the act of showing up extends beyond any single day. Over weeks of this practice, something remarkable happens. The ironclad habit of showing up transforms from a discipline into a part of who you are. You no longer grapple with whether to begin. Beginning becomes automatic. You notice that opportunities unfold not because you're the best, but because you're consistently present. You become reliable to yourself and to others, gaining momentum in projects, relationships, and personal growth. This habit also inoculates you against doubt. When a setback occurs, feedback you didn't expect, or a task that derails you, you lean on the habit. I will show up tomorrow. This simple commitment overrides inertia. You keep moving forward, refining your methods, expanding your skills. Showing up daily is the foundation upon which all other principles rest. It proves that you value your own growth, that you honor your vision more than fleeting emotions. It tells your mind and the world, you are someone who keeps promises. And in keeping promises to yourself, you earn the right to dream bigger. Embrace the power of presence. Each day, small acts of showing up compound into life-changing results. Let this habit define you, and you will find yourself unstoppable. Next, you will learn how to identify and eliminate the habits that steal your focus, ensuring your presence yields its fullest potential. You sit at your desk, ready to dive into the day's work, when you notice it. The endless scroll of social media feeds, the constant blinking of non-essential notifications, the half-finished coffee mug teetering on yesterday's papers. Each of these small elements is a thief, stealing fragments of your attention and splintering your focus into exhausting shards. Today, you resolve to hunt down these habits and eliminate them decisively, reclaiming your mind's full bandwidth for the work that truly matters. First, you perform a distraction audit. You make a list of every habitual action that fragments your concentration, refreshing your email client every few minutes, opening news websites on a whim, checking messages the moment your phone vibrates. You track your patterns for a full day. Note the time, the trigger, and the duration of each distraction. By nightfall, you possess a clear map of the most insidious, focus-stealing habits you've unconsciously cultivated. With data in hand, you systemically neutralize each distraction. For your email habit, you set specific email windows at 10 a.m. and 4 o'clock p.m., strictly no checking outside those times. You configure your email client to fetch new messages only during those windows and turn off push notifications entirely. You place a sticky note on your monitor, email at scheduled times only. Next, you tackle social media. You move the apps off your home screen and into a hidden folder, 2 swipes away from your fingertips. If the urge to scroll strikes, you confront it with the question, does this action support my priority right now? More often than not, the answer is no. You then engage a replacement ritual. You stand, stretch your arms overhead, and walk to fetch fresh water. This quick action breaks the rhythmic pattern of distraction and redirects your energy to a supportive self-care behavior. You also address the physical clutter that drags your gaze. You clear unnecessary objects from your workspace, extra notebooks, random gadgets, snack wrappers, until only essential tools remain. Your desk becomes a minimalist stage, a computer, a notebook, and a timer. You adopt a clean desk end-of-day policy, ensuring that every evening ends with your workspace reset. The next morning, you arrive refreshed, free from visual chaos that could derail your deep work. You then adjust your digital environment. You install website blockers that restrict access to distracting sites during work blocks, and you use focus mode on your apps, which hides menus and mutes non-critical alerts. You tune your phone to grayscale during deep sessions, removing the lure of colorful icons. When you sit down to work, you no longer see a carnival of stimuli. You see a canvas ready for your creation. Consider the example of Cal Newport, computer science professor and author, who coined deep work by scheduling vast blocks of undisturbed time and ruthlessly protecting them. He treats distraction like an intruder. Shut the door, dim the lights, and post a "Do Not Disturb" sign. You borrow his rigor, crafting your own policies and honoring them with the same level of seriousness you would a formal appointment. Beyond environmental changes, you rewire your habits through if-then contingencies. You decide, if I feel the urge to check Facebook, then I will do 5 push-ups. This simple brain hack turns an impulse into an opportunity for movement and resets your focus. You find that sweat and endorphins clear mental fog more effectively than a momentary scroll ever could. You also redefine how you manage micro-decisions. Instead of constantly deliberating between tasks, you batch small choices at designated times. You create an autopilot routine for repetitive decisions, your morning coffee ritual, your workout sequence, your midday email review. By automating these patterns, you free mental energy for creative and strategic thinking. Once you've neutralized the major thieves of focus, you embed a new supportive habit, mindful reset points. Every 90 minutes, you take a brief pause, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and scan your body for tension. You stretch, rub your temples, or sip herbal tea. These micro breaks recalibrate your nervous system and prevent the erosion of focus that comes from prolonged monotony. You collect metrics on your progress. You note your output, words written, problem solved, code lines committed, and compare it week to week. You see a clear curve. As distractions dwindle, productivity climbs. But beyond raw output, you also track subjective measures. How energized you feel, how creative your flow is, how much clarity you experience. You journal these insights, refining your distraction elimination system over time. You remain vigilant for new intruders. As work evolves, new apps, projects, and obligations surface. You schedule quarterly distraction audits to catch emerging habits before they become cemented. This habit of proactive maintenance ensures that your sanctuary of focus remains pristine. By exiling the habits that splinter your attention, you reclaim your mind's full capacity. You transform your workspace, both physical and digital, into a launchpad for deep, meaningful work. You are no longer at the mercy of every ping and pop-up. You decide where your attention lands and for how long. Hold this principle. Every fragment of focus you recover compounds into hours of deep work. With a clear mind, you move on to the next frontier, taking full ownership of your life's outcomes by embracing responsibility without blame. You wake to the faint glow of morning light filtering through your curtains, and before you even place a foot on the floor, your mind begins its familiar dance, blame shifting from the world that didn't allow you the time, the energy, the resources. Yet today, you choose a different path. You take absolute ownership of your life. You refuse to assign responsibility to circumstances, other people, or past mistakes. Instead, you accept that every outcome, from your greatest triumphs to your deepest regrets, emerges from choices you have made. This radical accountability becomes your compass, pointing you unerringly toward personal sovereignty. Taking ownership begins with language. You notice yourself muttering excuses, "I can't, because they made me feel, if only I had." You understand these phrases mask abdication of control, so you replace them with declarations of agency. I choose to, I accept responsibility for, I will make it happen by. This simple shift in wording rewires your mindset. When you say, "I choose to allocate my time differently," you empower yourself to act. When you say, "I accept responsibility for missing my deadline," you illuminate the path to corrective action rather than languishing in victimhood. Consider the journey of Oprah Winfrey. Early in her career, she faced rejection and criticisms, dismissed by television executives who couldn't see her potential. But she never blamed the industry. She blamed only herself for every stumbling block. She asked, "What can I learn? How can I adjust?" She reinvented her approach until her unique voice found its audience. By owning every outcome, good or bad, she cultivated the resilience and creativity that turned adversity into opportunity. You, too, stand at the threshold of possibility when you adopt her mindset. To practice radical accountability, you conduct a choice inventory at week's end. You list the key outcomes you experience: projects completed, commitments kept or broken, emotional reactions, and trace each back to the choices that caused them. Did you finish that report on time because you prioritized focused work? Did you miss the workshop because you spent the morning scrolling social media? You resist judgment. Instead, you view each entry as a data point guiding your next decision. This inventory reveals how much control you wield over your life's trajectory. Beyond reflection, you embed accountability into your systems. You create a commitment log in your journal, where you write your promises with a deadline and a metric of success. For instance, by Friday, I will complete the budget proposal with 95% accuracy. You revisit the log each morning, reaffirming your commitment and noting progress. When you fall short, you document why. Was the goal unrealistic? Did you underestimate the time required? This transparency with yourself builds trust and fuels improvement. In tandem, you recruit an accountability partner, a friend, colleague, or coach who will hold you to your commitments. You share your weekly goals and invite honest feedback. When you report back, you offer a concise overview of what you achieved and what you learned. The prospective discomfort of admitting failure dissolves your temptation to dodge responsibility. You find that knowing you'll answer to someone else compels you to honor your word. Ownership also extends to your emotional landscape. You recognize that your feelings arise from interpretations you choose. When anger flares at a colleague's email, you pause and ask, "Why am I upset? What meaning am I assigning?" You might discover that you equated their tone with personal disrespect. Owning this emotional reaction means acknowledging that while you cannot control their words, you can control how you interpret and respond. You choose to reframe, "They're under pressure, not attacking me." This response diffuses the emotion and guides a constructive reply. You apply this principle to setbacks as well. When a project fails or an opportunity evaporates, you resist the urge to externalize blame. "The market was impossible. My team didn't support me." Instead, you delve into honest analysis. Which decisions led to this result? Where did I underprepare? You resist the shelter of excuses and emerge from the assessment with actionable insights. This introspection keeps you on a steady course of growth and prevents you from replaying victim narratives. Consider the story of Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx. Her first pitch was repeatedly rejected by manufacturers. Rather than blaming their reluctance, she iterated, refining her prototype, rewriting her pitch, seeking feedback from every booth operator at trade shows. She owned both the problem and the solution. Within 2 years, she turned a $5,000 investment into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. By treating every obstacle as her responsibility, she unlocked solutions that lay hidden under layers of evasion. You also embrace the principle of no-blame retrospectives in your team or personal project. After completing a milestone, you gather for a brief review where each participant states one thing they did well and one they could have done differently without naming or shaming others. You frame the conversation: "We succeeded because of what we chose. We stumbled because of where our choices didn't align." This creates a culture of shared ownership and collective learning, galvanizing everyone toward excellence. Ownership demands bravery, especially when you've been wronged or let down by others. You might feel justified in harboring resentment after all. The other party did cause pain. But you recognize that resentment is a choice, and you choose freedom over bitterness. You decide to forgive but not to forget, to understand but not to excuse behaviors that harm your values. You reclaim your power by releasing emotional hold and directing energy toward productive actions. To cement this practice, you conclude each day with a choice reflection before bed. You ask, which decisions today moved me closer to my goals? Which ones pulled me away? What will I choose differently tomorrow? You record brief answers in your journal 2 lines. Maxo, the habit endures without burden. This nightly ritual imprints accountability onto your subconscious, ensuring ownership becomes second nature. As your commitment to ownership solidifies, you notice profound shifts. You no longer feel at the mercy of circumstances. Instead, you feel equipped to shape them. You catch yourself before making excuses, responding with curiosity rather than resentment. Your relationships transform. When conflict arises, you own your part and invite others to do the same, fostering trust and collaboration. Your projects thrive because you're no longer reactive but proactively steering outcomes. Through radical accountability, you earn the right to dream bigger. You prove to yourself and to the world that you are the captain of your ship. Storms will come and sails will tear, but you will adjust the rudder, patch the sail, and navigate onward. Nothing stands between you and your potential except the choices you've yet to make. Own every moment, every decision, every feeling. This principle will propel you into the discomfort of your next frontier, pushing beyond your breaking point to discover resilience you never knew you had. Next, you will embrace the crucible of challenge, learning to push past limits when your inner voice begs you to stop. You brace yourself at the edge of exhaustion, muscles trembling from repeated exertion, and the voice in your head whispers that you've reached your limit. Every fiber of your being aches for reprieve. Yet you understand that the crucible of true growth lies on the other side of that whisper. You choose to push beyond what feels possible, tapping into reserves of resilience you never knew existed. Your next benchmark is deceptively simple. Perform 1 more rep, write 1 more paragraph, take 1 more step. In that extra effort, you find the spark that ignites transformation. You recall Diana Nyad's final miles when swimming from Cuba to Florideth. Brutal saltwater stings, the jellyfish strikes, the looming specter of failure. Yet she persisted, stroke after stroke, propelled by an unwavering refusal to quit. You channel that same resolve. When every instinct screams, "Stop," you lean in and press onward. You incorporate micro-extensions into your routine. When running, you push an additional 30 seconds. When writing, you craft an extra sentence. When studying, you tackle 1 more problem. These minute expansions accumulate into colossal gains. You track them meticulously in your journal, each extra rep, each additional line, each extended minute logged as evidence of your commitment to exceed your own boundaries. Consider the tale of Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary ascending Everest. At the South Pole, oxygen levels plummeted. Every breath burned like flames in their lungs. Yet they found the strength to climb just 1 more pitch of rock, 1 more shelf of ice. Each incremental gain mattered more than the summit itself. You mirror their strategy. When your mind contests, "This is enough," you counter with, "This is just the beginning." You also leverage the power of small exposures. You intentionally seek situations that stretch you slightly beyond comfort. Public speaking to a handful of colleagues, pitching an idea to a skeptical manager, holding a challenging conversation with a friend. Each successful stretch expands your threshold for discomfort. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes merely unfamiliar and eventually routine. In moments of acute pain, physical or mental, you enlist your own inner coach. You speak to yourself as a mentor would. Pain is temporary. Glory endures. You visualize the end result, the surge of pride, the broadened capabilities, the confidence that radiates from having overcome. This mental contrasting, juxtaposing pain with the reward fuels your willpower, keeping you marching forward when every instinct urges retreat. You draw from the example of Aaron Ralston, who amputated his own arm to free himself from a boulder in a desert canyon. His circumstances were dire, but he pushed past the excruciating pain of self-liberation because he envisioned survival at every moment. His extreme hardship defined the limits of possibility. While your challenges may not demand such drastic measures, the principle remains. Resilience emerges when you stiffen your resolve at the brink of surrender. To institutionalize this practice, you adopt challenge windows each week. Brief, focused sessions where you deliberately work at the edge of your capability. You might lift a slightly heavier weight, speak extemporaneously to a small group, or tackle a problem that confounds you. You record the discomfort level on a scale of 1 to 10 and note how long you persevered. Over weeks, you observe that the same level of discomfort requires less mental effort, signaling that your tolerance has grown. When old patterns of quitting resurface, "I've hit my wall," you remind yourself that walls are meant to be climbed or dismantled. You break down tasks into bite-sized challenges. If writing a chapter feels overwhelming, you commit to drafting a paragraph. If running a mile feels too far, you focus on 2 laps around the block. Each sub-goal conquered chips away at the perception of insurmountability. You also celebrate each breakthrough, however small. You acknowledge when you held a plank 10 seconds longer, when you delivered a presentation without succumbing to nerves, when you solved a complex coding bug after hours of trial. These victories affirm that pushing beyond limits yields tangible growth. You anchor these triumphs in your memory, returning to them when future doubt arises. By continually testing and expanding your limits, you transform fatigue into fuel and fear into momentum. You learn that discomfort is the currency of progress, and the more you invest, the greater your returns. The next time your inner voice begs you to stop, you'll instead hear a clarion call to extend your reach just a bit further. Hold fast to this creed. Growth lives beyond the boundaries of comfort. And now, with that resilience forged, you will learn to trust the unseen process of gradual transformation, knowing that results often lie hidden below the surface. You stand before today's trial with sweat beading at your temples, breathing ragged, muscles quivering from repeated exertion. Every fiber of your being begs you to relent, to step back and catch your breath. Yet you know that the crucible of true growth lies on the other side of that pleading voice. So you choose to press on, tapping into reserves of resilience you never knew you possessed. Your challenge begins with a simple mantra: one more rep, one more sentence, one more minute. In that extra effort, you discover sparks that ignite transformation. Recall Diana Nyad, who at age 64 swam from Cuba to Florida 110-mile journey through shark-infested waters and relentless currents. For 53 hours straight, she battled dehydration, jellyfish stings, and bone-weary muscles. At every stroke, her mind could have whispered surrender, but she silenced it with one more stroke. You too channel that indomitable resolve. When each ounce of willpower seems spent, you summon the courage to extend yourself one more time. You embed this principle into every domain of your routine through micro-extensions. When running, you sprint an additional 30 seconds at the finish of your interval. When writing, you craft an extra sentence even after you feel you've said enough. When studying, you confront one more challenging problem beyond your comfort zone. Every micro-extension writes a line on the map of your expanded capability. You chronicle these efforts in your journal. Each extra push-up, stray sentence, added minute logged as proof that you refuse to settle. Consider the story of Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary at the South Pole, the final camp on their ascent of Everest. Oxygen levels hovered at 33% of sea level. Each breath felt like fire in their lungs. Yet they forced their bodies upward, pitch by pitch, ice shelf by ice shelf. They recited verses to steady their minds, focusing on one step at a time. You mirror their incremental focus. When your mind contests, "This is enough," you counter with, "This is just the beginning." You deepen your practice by introducing challenge windows into your calendar. Each week, you schedule a 90-minute block solely dedicated to stretching your limits. You might lift a heavier weight in the gym, hold a cold water immersion past your comfort threshold, or tackle a puzzle that frustrates your intellect. During these windows, you intentionally hover at the edge of discomfort, noting its intensity on a scale of 1 to 10. You record how long you persevered before temptation whispered, "Quit." Over weeks, you observe that tasks once rated 8 now feel like 5s, proof that your capacity has grown. This intentional discomfort conditions your mind to perceive challenge as opportunity rather than threat. In the thick of exertion, you cultivate the voice of your inner coach. This voice speaks not from sentiment, but from strategy. Pain is temporary. Growth is lasting. You imagine a calm, authoritative guide someone who's faced worse and emerged triumphant. You say aloud, "Just one more," channeling that coach's confidence. This technique, known as self-distancing, reduces emotional reactivity and heightens self-motivation. You visualize the finish line or final paragraph as though you've already crossed it, tasting victory before it arrives. This vivid mental rehearsal merges emotion with action, propelling you forward when your limbs revolt. You also practice grit partner challenges. You recruit a friend or colleague equally committed to expansion. You set mirrored goals perhaps, who can hold a plank longer, write the most words in a session, or solve the hardest coding problem. You share your results at week's end, celebrating breakthroughs and strategizing around hurdles. This friendly rivalry injects accountability and amplifies your willingness to dig deeper. When doubt creeps in, "I can't push further," you remember your partner expects you to show up stronger, and that expectation becomes a lifeline. Let's return to the example of Aaron Ralston, trapped alone in a Utah canyon when a boulder pinned his arm. Faced with impossible odds, he measured his pain in seconds and chose to amputate his own limb, welding survival to sheer will. While your challenges may not demand such extremity, the principle remains. Resilience emerges when you press past the brink. Sometimes you must remove the obstacle external distractions. Mental blockage to unlock freedom. Ralston's act symbolizes the ultimate one more decision, one more radical step toward liberation. To ensure this habit endures beyond spurts of motivation, you integrate micro-celebrations. After each extension, whether it's an extra rep or paragraph, you pause briefly, raise your fist, whisper, "Yes," or jot a quick note of triumph in your journal. These tiny acknowledgments reinforce neural pathways that associate effort with reward. Over time, your brain begins to crave the dopamine hit from pushing past limits, turning grit into a self-sustaining cycle. You also employ reflective stretching, a nightly ritual where you revisit each challenge window. You ask yourself, "What did I resist? How did pushing through feel at the height of discomfort? Where did I surprise myself?" You consolidate lessons learned and set a specific target for the next session, perhaps adding 10 seconds to your plank or tackling 2 extra challenging problems. This iterative loop sharpens your focus and cements growth. With resilience cultivated, you confront deeper fears beyond physical, endurance, social, creative, and emotional challenges. You might volunteer to deliver a 10-minute speech without slides, pitch an untested idea to skeptical investors, or initiate an emotional conversation with a loved one. Each act tests your threshold for vulnerability, demanding you push past the instinct to retreat. You bracket these experiences as vulnerability workouts, labeling them by difficulty and rating your composure afterward. Over time, the same courage that drove you through physical strain transfers to every realm of life. Imagine standing before a crowded auditorium, heart racing as you share your vision. The urge to flee is primal, yet you sense something deeper at play, your purpose calling you forward. You lean into your breath, recall your mantra, and step into the spotlight. With each word spoken, your discomfort diminishes and confidence swells. You've extended yourself beyond the safety of anonymity into the arena of influence. This is the same mark of grit that fueled Naiad's swim and Hillary's climb, a willingness to endure vulnerability for the sake of growth. By continuously testing and expanding your limits, you transform fatigue into fuel and fear into momentum. You learn that discomfort is the currency of progress, and the more you invest, the greater your returns. When your inner voice begs you to stop, you'll instead hear the clarion call to reach one more inch beyond your perceived capacity. As you internalize this creed, that growth lives beyond the boundaries of comfort, you stand ready for the next phase, trusting the unseen process of gradual transformation. Because while pushing past limits challenges your present self, it also forges the resilience to embrace the invisible journey ahead. You blink against the dim light of dawn, recalling yesterday's effort's every extra paragraph. Every micro-extension of your limitant, you wonder if those labors will bear fruit. There is no immediate proof. No ticket to success appears on your desk overnight. Still, you take a slow, steady breath and commit to trusting the unseen process. You understand that transformation often unfolds beneath the surface, beyond the reach of your daily measurements. Today, you choose faith in gradual progress over the impatience of instant results. You begin with a morning routine that reinforces this trust. Before touching your phone or opening your laptop, you stand by the window and observe a single leaf drifting in the wind. You watch how it sways, how it resists gusts yet remains alive, adapting to every current. You remind yourself that growth is like that leaf. It bends, it endures, and it flourishes in time. You whisper to yourself, "Progress is happening even when I cannot see it." This simple act cultivates patience in your mind, anchoring you in belief rather than doubt. You turn to the story of Vincent van Gogh, who painted hundreds of canvases in obscurity, trading paintings for room and board because no one understood his vision. He labored daily, applying brushstroke after brushstroke, convinced that each color, however muddy, contributed to a masterpiece no one yet recognized. He did not receive acclaim until after his death. Yet he trusted his process, mixing pigments, experimenting with light, wrestling with textures, believing that mastery emerged from relentless practice. You adopt his resolve, recognizing that your own efforts, though invisible to others, are honing your craft. To train your mind to trust the unseen, you implement process logs. Instead of only tracking output, you record the unfolding of your actions, the number of ideas sketched, the questions you asked, the mistakes you made and corrected. You note how long you spent experimenting, researching, and reflecting. In this log, you write entries such as, "Today, I tried 3 new approaches to solving that coding challenge. Only one failed outright, but it taught me a boundary I hadn't seen." Over weeks, you gaze back at these entries and realize that even when your output ebbed, your understanding flowed. You learn that mastery germinates in trial, error, and iteration. You also schedule blind faith intervals, periods of work where you focus solely on process, not product. You set a timer for 60 minutes and vow not to evaluate your progress until the timer rings. During this interval, you immerse yourself fully, drafting your document, experimenting with melody, sculpting clay, or running drills. You resist the urge to check metrics or outcomes. When the timer ends, you reflect, "I honored my process." This practice strengthens your ability to persist without external validation, reinforcing that your work matters even when results are not immediately visible. Consider the incremental advances in scientific discovery. Think of the astronomers who charted the night sky for decades before detecting gravitational waves. Their telescopes recorded background noise. Their data streams seemed inconclusive, yet they trusted that patterns lay hidden. Eventually, in 2015, lasers in a cavernous facility in Washington state measured ripples in space-time, confirming predictions made a century earlier by Einstein. Those scientists embodied belief in a process that demanded patience and precision. You draw inspiration from their perseverance, understanding that breakthroughs often arrive after long stretches of invisible preparation. On a personal level, you amplify this principle through confidence diaries. At the end of each week, you write 3 observations that reveal growth you didn't notice in real time. "My sentences flowed more smoothly than last week." "I solved that error 3 times faster." Or, "My endurance increased without me tracking every run." These diary entries become proof that small, unseen changes accumulate into significant transformations. You review them when doubt clouds your mind, reminding yourself that progress has been and continues to be made. You weave trust into your collaborative efforts as well. When working with a team, you set expectations around process milestones rather than outcome milestones. Instead of demanding finished drafts by Tuesday, you ask for completion of research outlines and feedback sessions. You celebrate the act of sharing drafts, knowing that discussion and revision feed improvement. This shifts everyone's focus from fearing imperfect results to valuing learning through iteration. As a result, the team's morale rises, and final deliverables emerge more refined than if they'd been rushed. To guard against impatience, you cultivate mini rituals of acknowledgement. After completing process-focused work, whether it's recording a practice run-through, drafting a blog post, or polishing a prototype, you pause and acknowledge, "I honored the work." You might close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, or speak aloud, "I trust this path." These gestures solidify a mental contract that your efforts hold intrinsic value, irrespective of immediate outcomes. In moments when you crave proof, when the lack of tangible gains tempts you to abandon course, you activate a process pause. You step away from your work surface and perform a brief mindfulness exercise. 3 deep breaths, a silent recitation of your commitment, and a mindful stretch. You center yourself on the process itself, each inhale representing dedication, each exhale releasing the need for instant reward. This ritual reorients your mind to value the journey as much as the destination. You anchor this principle in your long-term vision. You maintain a vision board or document where you map the trajectory of your ambitions across months and years. Alongside the big milestone dates, you annotate the incremental process steps, courses to take, drafts to review, prototypes to test. When you revisit this vision board, you see not only distant achievements, but the granular process that will lead you there. This integrated perspective reassures you that every action, however small, serves progress toward your ultimate goals. Reflect on the growth rings of a tree. From the outside, you see only a tall trunk. But when you view a cross-section, you discover layers representing every year of its life droughts, storms, seasons of plenty. Each ring testifies to the tree's silent, incremental expansion. You realize that your own progress operates on similar principles. The visible outcomes: promotions won, projects completed, creative works shared air, merely the outer circumference of your inner layered growth. You trust that every ring of effort contributes to your enduring strength. You also integrate accountability into this trust. You enlist a mentor or peer to review your process logs monthly. They focus on questions like, what experiments have you tried? How have you adapted after failures? They encourage you to continue refining your process rather than obsessing over final results. This external validation of your methods reinforces your confidence in the unseen work, making you more resilient when outcomes remain distant. As you internalize faith in the gradual journey, you discover serenity in uncertainty. You replace the frantic need for constant feedback with a composed assurance that your actions matter. Work sessions become less about chasing metrics and more about cultivating craft. Each draft, each practice, each experiment glimmers with purpose, even when success lies unseen. Trusting the invisible process is not a passive surrender. It is an active partnership with your own effort. You feed the process with curiosity, discipline, and compassion, knowing that results grow in proportion to the quality and consistency of input. You learn to dance with uncertainty, leaning into the unknown rather than recoiling from it. Carry this lesson forward. Belief in gradual transformation fuels resilience, creativity, and integrity in your work. With this foundation, you are prepared to hold your vision clear and unwavering no matter the noise of naysayers or the absence of immediate proof. Next, you will align every decision and action with that vision, ensuring you hold fast until victory emerges. You sit at your desk late into the night, a single lamp casting a warm circle of light around you, while the rest of the world fades into darkness. Papers sprawled across the surface, digital tabs blinking with half-finished projects, and the familiar hum of your computer all press in on your senses. It would be all too easy to abandon your larger aspirations in favor of small comforts or excuses. Yet you recall the vision you carried into this journey. Not a vague dream, but a vivid picture of your future, self-confident, accomplished, and unwavering. Tonight, you choose to hold that vision as your guiding star, anchoring every decision and action to its magnetic pull. You begin by revisiting your vision statement, a concise but potent paragraph you crafted weeks ago. It reads, "You stand on a stage, delivering insights that transform lives. You walk into any room radiating calm authority. You finish projects with the satisfaction of mastery. You inspire others by the example of your perseverance." Reading these words now stirs emotions deep within excitement, pride, and an almost palpable sense of future reality. You feel a quiet surge of energy, a reminder that this vision is more than wishful thinking. It is the blueprint for every choice you make. To keep this vision alive, you integrate vision triggers into your daily life. A framed photo of your imagined stage sits on your desk. A playlist of songs you associate with triumph plays softly during focused work sessions. A scented candle whose aroma you associate with success burns during evening planning. Each trigger links a sensory experience to your vision, forging neural pathways that make future success feel present. When doubt creeps in, perhaps after a setback or a bout of fatigue, a whiff of that candle or a glance at that photo jolts your mind back into alignment. Consider the example of Roger Bannister, who in 1954 became the first person to run a sub-4-minute mile. For decades, athletes believed the barrier was insurmountable. Bannister, however, visualized himself slicing through the tape in just under 4 minutes. He trained methodically, setting pacers and measuring splits to mirror his mental rehearsal. On race day, despite rainy conditions, he maintained unwavering focus on the stopwatch tick each second, moving him closer to the boundary he had already broken in his mind. When he crossed the finish line at 3:59.4, he shattered not only a physical record but also the psychological barrier for every runner thereafter. You adopt Bannister's approach. By visualizing victory with exact detail, you break through limits you once thought permanent. Holding vision until victory also requires decision alignment. You scrutinize each choice, large or small, against the filter of your vision. Does this action move me closer to the future I imagine? If the answer is yes, you proceed. If not, you eliminate or delay it. This alignment applies to everything from the projects you undertake to the people with whom you spend time. You might decline a well-paying assignment that does not build the skills you need, or reschedule social engagements that sap your creative energy. Each no becomes an affirmation of your long-term priorities, ensuring that every yes carries the full force of your intention. You further fortify your commitment through daily vision reviews. Each morning, you spend 3 minutes reading your vision statement aloud, feeling the words resonate in your chest. You close your eyes and imagine sensory details, the applause echoing after your presentation, the weight of a newly published book in your hands, the warmth of gratitude in someone's eyes as you share your hard-earned wisdom. This brief ritual primes your mindset, aligning your emotional state and decision-making processes with the qualities necessary for success, confidence, clarity, and resolve. When challenges arise and they will, you lean on a strategy known as vision anchoring. During difficult moments, you pause and intentionally evoke a sensory cue linked to your vision. Perhaps you play a single bar of your success anthem or glance at the picture on your desk. These anchors trigger the emotional and physiological states you need. Increased heart rate that translates into energized action, a straightened spine that conveys confidence, a steady breath that steadies your resolve. By anchoring your mind-body connection to your vision, you overcome the paralysis of doubt and step forward with conviction. You also employ scenario scripting, a form of mental rehearsal that prepares you for obstacles. You imagine 3 possible setbacks: public criticism, technical glitches, or sudden fatigue, and script how you will respond. For each scenario, you detail the steps. If the microphone fails, I will speak clearly and project without amplification. If I encounter a challenging question, I will pause, thank the asker, and respond with composed honesty. If exhaustion hits mid-presentation, I will slow my pace, take a sip of water, and draw energy from remembering the faces in the audience. This scripting leaves no room for panic. Your responses become automatic, driven by the clarity of vision rooted in preparation. Consider Malala Yousafzai again, who envisioned a world where every girl could learn. When faced with threats and an assassination attempt, she did not waver. She had rehearsed her voice and her message so thoroughly that even in the hospital bed, she spoke from certainty. Her example teaches you that holding vision until victory means becoming so intimately acquainted with your purpose that no external force can derail you. To ensure your vision withstands the friction of daily life, you cultivate a vision community. You share your vision statement with a small circle of trusted peers, friends, mentors, or collaborators who remind you of it when you falter. These allies send you occasional messages. Remember why you started, or your vision deserves your best today. Their ongoing encouragement forms a buffer against the isolation that often accompanies ambitious pursuits. In turn, you offer them the same support, creating a reciprocal network that holds each member accountable to their highest aspirations. You also track vision milestones, not only the final achievements, but the intermediate markers that signal progress. Completing the first draft of your manuscript, landing a speaking engagement, securing an article placement. Each milestone carries its own emotional charge, a reminder that your vision is unfolding. You celebrate these markers with intentional rituals, sharing the news with loved ones, marking the date on a calendar, or treating yourself to a symbolic reward. These celebrations reinforce your belief that your vision is real and that you are steadily marching toward victory. Holding vision until victory demands humility as well as confidence. You remain open to feedback, recognizing that your vision may evolve as you grow. When new information emerges, market trends, technological innovations, or personal insights, you adjust your vision statement and alignment criteria accordingly. You view your vision as a living document, refined by experience rather than rigidly imposed. This humility ensures that your pursuit remains grounded in reality while still propelled by aspiration. Finally, you embrace vision gratitude. Each evening, you jot down 3 things you accomplished that align with your vision and express gratitude for the opportunity to advance. You might write, "I drafted 2 powerful paragraphs that reflect my unique perspective," or "I spent focused time practicing public speaking." This gratitude shifts your mindset from what's lacking to what's manifesting, reinforcing a positive feedback loop that sustains motivation. As you lock in your vision, each action, decision, and ritual converges toward a singular truth. You will not relent until victory is yours. The path ahead may twist through setbacks, doubts, and unexpected detours, but your vision serves as an unwavering compass. You are no longer buffeted by chance. You are guided by design. Keep this principle at the forefront. Align every step with your vision. Anchor yourself in sensory triggers, script responses to obstacles, and celebrate progress along the way. With vision held unwavering, you stand poised for the final frontier. Relentless recovery after every fall, ensuring that no setback ever halts your forward momentum. You lie on the floor after yet another setback, and email rejection, a stalled project, a disappointing critique, your chest tight, your spirit bruised. The instinct is to stay down, to let the pain seep into your bones and declare this the end. Yet, you know that true victory belongs to those who rise after every fall. Today, you choose to practice relentless recovery, transforming each stumble into the springboard for your next ascent. First, you acknowledge the fall. Rather than burying disappointment or pretending all is well, you sit with it for a moment. You close your eyes and place a hand over your heart, naming the hurt. "I feel discouraged by this rejection." This act of emotional candor arms you with clarity. You avoid 2 pitfalls, wallowing in self-pity and suffocating the emotion with forced positivity. Instead, you greet the hurt like an old friend, recognizing its presence without granting it sovereignty. You recall Thomas Edison's thousands of failed experiments before inventing the practical light bulb. Edison didn't view each failure as defeat. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." You adopt his mindset. Every misstep is data. After acknowledging your emotions, you perform a failure debrief. You list 3 concrete lessons: what went wrong, why it happened, and what you'll do differently. If your presentation flopped, you note that your slides were too text-heavy, you underestimated audience knowledge, and next time you'll integrate visuals and rehearse more. This structured approach dissolves regret into actionable insight. Next, you engage your recovery ritual. You step away from work and engage in a brief physical activity, 10 push-ups or a brisk 5-minute walk. The surge of movement floods your body with endorphins and interrupts the ruminative cycle. You don't use this as a distraction. Instead, you reframe it as part of your response plan. Movement signals to your brain that you are not defeated, that your body, like your will, remains in motion. You then rebuild momentum through micro-commitments. You set 3 tiny tasks you can complete in the next 15 minutes. A quick review of 1 page, drafting a single sentence, or organizing your desk. You complete them swiftly, each checkmark reinforcing competence and easing you back into action. These micro-wins accumulate confidence, reminding you that capability persists beyond any stumble. Consider the example of J.K. Rowling. Rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter was embraced, she didn't let each no define her worth. She refined her manuscript, persisted in querying, and ultimately captivated millions. You channel her resilience. Instead of viewing a setback as a sign to quit, you treat it as a signal to iterate. After micro-commitments, you schedule a renewal break. You return to a passion project, unconnected to the failure playing. A few bars of piano, sketching a quick doodle, or reading a favorite poem. This diversion isn't escapism. It reconnects you to intrinsic joy and reignites creativity. By shifting your focus momentarily, you nourish the wellspring of motivation that underpins sustained effort. When you return to your main work, you begin with a brief, fresh start affirmation. You stand tall, breathe deeply, and declare aloud, "This setback is behind me." I press forward. You visualize a whiteboard wiping clean, mentally erasing the weight of past missteps. This cognitive reset distinguishes before from after, allowing you to approach tasks with renewed energy rather than the residue of disappointment. You also leverage social support through a check-in call. You reach out to a trusted friend or mentor, share what happened briefly, and outline your next steps. Their encouragement and perspective buoy your spirit and offer alternative angles you might have missed. Just as Ernest Shackleton's crew relied on camaraderie to survive Antarctic trials, you recognize that recovery thrives in community. A few heartfelt words can tip the balance from despair to determination. To prevent future falls from derailing you, you embed resilient scaffolds into your routine. You keep a setback scrapbook, notes of past challenges and how you overcame them, paired with tangible evidence of progress, screenshots of first sales, snippets of praise, before and after drafts. When you confront a new low, you flip through the scrapbook, reminding yourself of your capacity to recover and evolve. Finally, you honor the fall and the rise with a brief gratitude practice. You jot down 3 things you appreciate about the ordeal: the clarity gained, the skill sharpened, or the humility learned. You recognize that setbacks often carry hidden gifts, perspectives you wouldn't have gained otherwise. This gratitude doesn't gloss over pain. It transmutes it into fuel for growth. By rising after every fall, you forge invincibility, not by avoiding setbacks, but by mastering recovery. Each time you get up, you reinforce the truth that your will cannot be quelled by circumstance. Your falls become the pulse in the rhythm of your progress, and your rises become the crescendo of your victory. Hold fast. No stumble is final. Your resilience is defined not by the number of times you fall, but by the unwavering certainty with which you rise. In closing, your journey has navigated 10 principles from forging strength brick by brick to mastering the art of recovery. Each principle forms a link in the chain of your transformation, connecting intention to action, discomfort to growth, and vision to reality. You began with the commitment to show up, then built a fortress of focus, harnessed doubt as fuel, honored your promises, eradicated distractions, embraced ownership, pushed past limits, trusted unseen progress, held fast to vision, and finally, rose after each fall. Now, you stand at a pivotal moment. The path ahead will present fresh challenges, unforeseen obstacles, and invitations to retreat. Yet equipped with these 10 principles, you possess a playbook for perpetual advancement. When you falter, debrief and rise. When you doubt, reaffirm and advance. When you ache, breathe and extend. Your transformation is neither linear nor guaranteed. It is earned through deliberate practice, relentless resilience, and unwavering belief. As you close this audiobook, carry these lessons as a living companion in your daily life. Revisit them whenever you need guidance, Remind yourself to show up, reinforce your focus, fight through doubt, own every decision, eliminate distractions, push beyond limits, trust the process, align with vision, and rise after every fall. Let them animate your actions until they become as natural as breathing. This journey is yours to command. Go forward with courage, craft your destiny with intention, and let your victories, both large and small, testify to the unbreakable power within you.